Hey there, so in this video, we're going to set up objectives. I'm also going to show you how to skip objectives. That way, if something's already been collected via an opt-in form, you're not having the bot do unnecessary or redundant tasks. So once you log into your CloseBot account, now you may have multiple bots. Be very sure that you are on the right bot. So if you only have one or you're in a test account, certainly okay. But just make sure you select whichever bot that you actually want to use. Now, you're going to navigate over to Modify Bot on this left-hand side. And then we are going to jump over to the Objectives tab. So let's let this load. There we go. We're actually, it looks like we might already be on Objectives here. If you're not, simply click Objectives, and you should see something that looks like this. Now, if you've built this off of a template, you may have more things filled out. But this one right here just has business name, name, and booking. But I'm going to show you kind of what all the priorities mean, how to stack these cards properly, and how to set up the objectives. Now, this particular bot, we have it collecting business names. So this is a missed call text back bot from our company page. So if somebody calls us, we don't answer, we want to determine the business name that is calling. Sensitivity, we typically always leave at 50. Now, if you hover over these little things or click the button, you can literally watch a video about what each one of these things mean. That had an ad, so I'm not going to pull it up here. Max attempts, this one's pretty simple. So we usually leave it on 2. What max attempts mean is it basically means that whenever we have an objective, the bot's only going to try to achieve this information or collect this information 2 times. Now, if you unselect this box, it is infinite. So if it's unselected, it's going to keep asking the question in the conversation until it achieves that information. Good rule of thumb, I leave everything at 2, unless it's super, super important. I might bump it up to 3. But the best thing we want to do is make sure this conversation flows naturally. So I don't want it asking too many times for the same information. Now, you've also got this type. Are we gathering information? Are we trying to collect information from the lead or the contact? Or are we trying to give them information? Now, typically, most of my objectives that I use are typically gather information. You can use give information if you want to send a link or you want to send a, hey, make sure we let them know this thing and if they're ready to proceed. So you can play with that. But typically, I build my bots all with gather info first. And then sometimes I'll go back and make sure that it gives info. So business name here, there's a auto update section here. Now, auto update, this is essentially going to say that we're going to map this out to a certain custom field within the Go high level account. Now, right here, you have a skip objective if field is already filled out. And what this means is if we go to the contact, and let's just say we did have a business name section in here, or actually first name is a good example here. If we've already collected the first name because Jeff has filled out an opt-in form, then the objective here, let me go to the name actually, then the objective here, if we turn this on and it notices that the name has already been pre-populated, then it's going to skip this one. So generally, I'm leaving this on right here, unless let's just say you're doing an update to client information. That's an example that we've done in our marketing agency. We'll send out, instead of a form, we're sending out a chatbot to ask questions and update their information. So, hey, we want to make sure we have the most accurate information for you. What are your business hours? When they respond, it'll automatically update that field. So we leave this unchecked, so that way it rewrites and puts the new information in there. But in most instances where you're having that initial conversation with the bot with a contact, you'll want to leave this on so that way it skips the objective if that field has already been filled out. Now, you'll notice priorities 1 through 6, you can have a lot of different priorities here, and then you can also have columns here, so you can kind of prioritize which information you want to receive first. Now, what's cool is anything that's in a priority column, that it will go after that information in the most natural way. So, you don't necessarily need to reorder them if you don't want to. The bot is really good at depicting how the conversation is flowing, and it's going to naturally ask for whichever piece of information it can get first within that column more naturally. So I see people, sometimes they're moving this stuff around. Doesn't necessarily matter too much. What matters is the order of priority. So you'll notice that business name and name were in this first column right here. It's going to collect all of this information and achieve these two objectives before it moves on to priority 2. Now, typically our flow is going to look something more like this. So name, let's grab email real quick. So email, determine, and you can use get lead names, email, or determine. Determine is a really good word to use for a bot. It seems to understand it and act a little better when you use the word determine. Shout out to Bryce for letting us know to use this language. So determine at lead_name email address. And this right here is a pretty much a custom value for CloseBot, meaning the contact. So when you're talking to the contact, we want to get their at lead name. So if we want to get their email address, we're just putting determine at lead name's email address. Now we're going to auto update and we're going to select email right here. So, and you can label these. I personally am like to use proper punctuation or capitalize things. Just looks a little cleaner, especially if I'm building this out for a client. So I'm making sure that things are capitalized and not lowercase because it just looks a little better. Now you'll notice there's no max attempt. It's going to attempt infinitely to collect this information. So let me go ahead and change this to 2 right there, which it actually has. And then we're going to skip this objective if the field is already filled out. Again, if we're trying to update information and there's a better email, then we would leave this unchecked so that way it can basically overwrite that email. Now, if you click this button right here, it's going to show a couple different things. Now I want to show you what this means, but I'm going to show you on a different objective because it wouldn't really make much sense to play with this in email. But if you look at it though, if somebody says why, you can actually have it respond, I'll need your email later to send you more info. Is that okay? You can also update this if somebody says why. Well, in order to give the best quote, we need to make sure that, we can check that on our end and then follow up with you via email. However you'd want it to respond, you can just give it context on how you want it to respond. Now, sometimes this isn't verbatim. It will, use this language and respond more accurately with how you've prompted it or how the conversation's going. So, okay, you can get me at jake@gmail.com. Perfect, thank you. So you're just giving it examples of what good and bad, answers are. So if they say why, don't pass it. We want to make sure that, we let them know why we need their email, and we're going to make sure that we pass it. Now, if you say, hey, okay, my email's this, okay, that's an example of a good answer. So this section down here, and you don't typically have to mess with it, but if you want to, like you're asking for objectives and you're starting to get, some objections or rebuttals instead of the information, then give the bot context as to what people are saying and then add it in here. Now, this isn't meant to be like a ton of questions and answers here. It's just if your bot's having trouble collecting information because people aren't responding well to the questions that it's asking, you give it more context to give the client or the contact more context. So let me close this one here. Now look, so we have priority 1 is we want to collect, in this instance, their business name. It's probably going to be different for you if you're working with, like, let's just say a carpet cleaning company. Maybe the first set of information is name, email, phone number. Maybe it's just name and, how big their house is or how many rooms their house is or square footage. We're going to put that in priority 1 before collecting the email. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Me personally, I don't like going for the kill right away, meaning I don't like trying to collect name, email, phone number just right away. Typically, I'm doing some sort of combination of these. So if somebody's interacting with our chat bot or they've called and our bot's texting them back, first thing we want to know is, who are we talking to? So we're generally going to get name. And, if they're calling our business, we typically know that they're calling about growing their business. So we want to know what their business name is. Now, another thing we might add in here is state or city and state. Now, determine at lead _ names, city and state the business operates in. Now, again, this is a little miniature prompt, but this is what we're trying to achieve with this objective here. And then if you want to, we can add more information or more context. But again, when prompting, we always say less is more. You want to give it the maximum amount of information that you need to. And actually, let me rephrase that. You want to give it as little information as you need to, but as much as you need to achieve the objective, if that makes any sense at all. We don't want to over-prompt. We don't want to confuse it. The more information you jam down the bot's throat, the less freely it operates and the less natural the conversations are. So I typically only go back in here and re-prompt if I don't like the responses that it's outputting, but that's happening less and less. The team is doing a phenomenal job at doing the back-end prompting for you to achieve the goal of one day maybe a promptless AI that can just do all this stuff naturally after you put in what it is you want to collect. Now, again, I'm going to hide this extra prompt. We're going to auto-update a section here. Now, a couple things. If you're not seeing the stuff in here, you can actually go to here, and then we can go to a custom field. Now, this is probably best served in another video, but let me just kind of show you what needs to happen here. Now, I would put this information in a folder, meaning if we're collecting business information, then I would make a folder for that personally. So business information, and it's going to go in the contact. So we're going to save. So now we got a new folder called business information. And now I'm going to click on that. and now I'm going to add a field. So let's just do a single line. There we go. Next, field name, city and state. Now, this could be broken up into city and then state if you wanted to, but for sake of keeping this video as short as possible, I'm just going to name this one city and state. It's going in the contact. Business group is, or the folder is business information. Placeholder, city and state, and then we're going to save. So that's in there now. Let me refresh my page on my contact, and we should be able to see that in here. Minimize that. So we got business information here. So now we have city and state. So what's cool about this is, let me close this. Do make sure you save, because if you refresh without saving, you will lose anything that you've done. So let me save, make sure that's done here. Now we're going to refresh the page. And let's click on city and state. So now we're going to update or auto-update this custom field, which is now in here. So if you saw what I did there, I added in the section business information, which is a folder in custom fields, but then I also added the custom field city and state. So if we want, once it collects this information, to auto-update our lead profile, as I call it, it's going to do that. You just have to map it out. And if you're not seeing it in here, one, make sure that you've added it in your Go High Level sub account that's connected to your bot. And then also make sure that after you save, you refresh this page, and then it should show up. Now again, if my bot already has that information, maybe this person's called us before, maybe their profile's almost filled out, I'm going to skip that objective. But again, I'm turning on the max attempts. We're going to 2. I'm leaving the sensitivity at 50. If you find that it's passing things that shouldn't qualify as an answer, you can raise the sensitivity or lower it to, fit that criteria. But again, the better the prompting gets on the back end, the less and less we have to deal with stuff like that. So I typically leave it at 50. I typically leave this at 2, and we can close that there. Again, save, get in the habit of doing that just so you don't lose any hard work that you've done. And let me just show you a couple more things here. So if we wanted to prioritize these things a little bit differently, right now, priority 1 is we want to get their business name, city and state, and then their first name. Other, I guess, quick tip here is get at lead name's name. I do always add ideally first name, and then I do a either separate objective for last name. So that way it's not, can I get your first and last name? Unless that's how your business operates and people are used to being asked that question in that specific way. But typically I'm doing first name, and let's just name that here. First name, all right, close. There we go. So our priority 1 is we want business name, city and state, and first name. Now we could do this, we could space this stuff out. My booking is probably my last objective. My priority 3 here can be email, and I can put this to priority 2. So the first things we're going to be asking is, let's just do first name. First name is, once we have that information, great. Now let's pass on to priority 2. Priority 2 is business name and city and state. So once it gets this information, it's going to fill that out in our lead or our contact information, and it's going to pass on to email. Now, I've also seen it done, to where we flip these things around. You might want business name after the email. However your business operates, just make sure that it's natural. And if you're not getting as many quote unquote conversions as you'd like, then start spacing this stuff out more. Stop going for the kill like email on priority 1 when a conversation can help build rapport, and then they're more comfortable with giving you that email. So our priority 1 is going to be first name, then business name, then city and state. Then we're going to collect their email address. If we wanted their phone number, which again, this is a miscalled text back bot, so it's probably already got their phone number, but if not, at lead names, best mobile phone number. And I always put mobile phone number, that way we're not getting like a business or landline or anything like that. We're also going to auto update phone, and I'm going to skip this objective field if it's already filled out. Max attempts, I'm leaving at 2, and sensitivity, we're leaving at 50 here. So now it's got first name, then we're going to collect business name, city and state that they're in, email address, phone number, and then we're going to go to booking. Now, cool thing with booking here is, book a 30-minute demo appointment with at lead name. Here is where you would change the verbiage if you were saying, maybe it's an inspection. We deal with a lot of roofers right now, and maybe they're booking a 30-minute inspection or whatever that is. So give that context, and that's what we're trying to do with this one. Now it's going to automatically update the calendar, and we can actually, just put in the calendar info right here with the booking widget. Now you'll notice if this is red, that means your calendar is not set up correctly, so it's not going to work. Now, all you got to do, and I don't think I have a calendar in here, so let me check this out real quick. Yep, no calendar. Let me see if I can quickly create one for you guys just to show you. Select, confirm, Jeff's fake calendar. Staff member, we have no staff members in here. I would have to create one. Anyways, let me just show you what this looks like. So you would typically have a custom URL and you would copy whatever that is. So Jeff's fake calendar. And you would either copy that custom URL, or when you have a booking link, what you're taking from there is this crazy looking, hexadecimal thing afterwards, and you're putting that here. Now, if you put a custom link, it might be Jeff's fake calendar. But again, since it's not a real calendar in that account, this is still going to show red. As soon as you have this connected properly and it is a real calendar in there, this will highlight green and there'll be a little check mark in there. And I'll show that in another video simply for connecting the calendar purposes. But same thing, we want to gather info and we want max attempts at 2. Now you'll notice sensitivity is not there because this is a little bit different objective. We want to make sure they book an appointment. So once that's done, it is done there. And now we have our flow. So again, you can prioritize these however you like. Typically you wouldn't leave any spaces in between. So we wouldn't put nothing on priority 4, but we would leave everything here. So let me go back here. Cool thing is once it has this information, let me go to CloseBot. You'll notice that we didn't even have to put the goals accomplished in here. Once we added new things to here and we have goals, like we need first name, we need business name, we need city and state, email, phone, booking, we have all that stuff now in the CloseBot section, which basically will start checking off whenever the conversation is happening and we've achieved those things. So if we've got business name, it's going to automatically check itself. You don't need to do anything with it here. So again, once these are all filled out and you can kind of see how that conversation is going, if all that information is being collected, and it'll be all in here. And as a good rule of thumb, if you need to reset this, all you got to do is check that box, click save. It will reset, uncheck all these boxes, and clear the conversation with CloseBot. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, we have a bunch of other videos to help you throughout this process, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how the objectives work and also how to skip them. I will see you guys in the next video.